Fresh from the barrel, hot off the presses, and straight to you. This is Dingle's sixth and final batch of their single malt releases. Welcome to Grand Fine Whisky. My name is Matt, and like I said, today I'm looking at the sixth and final single malt small batch release from Dingle Distillery. This was just released this week, but there's only 15,000 bottles of it in the entire world, and I do not expect it to last long. So let's get into the glass, and I'll tell you a bit more about it. For this sixth and final one of their small batch releases, they've aged their whiskey entirely in Tawny Port casks, which, as you can see, has given it a really deep red, kind of fruity colour. It's also going to bring lots more of the spice, lots more of the kind of really deep marmalade, spiciness, kind of red wine tannins. You're going to get some cocoa, some dark chocolate notes coming through. It's going to be a really good release. Earlier this year, Dingle released their Single Malt core release, which is kind of a product you're going to see forever. That's aged in bourbon casks and Pedro Jimenez sherry casks. It's got really nice, deep, rich flavour, and it's a good statement of what the distillery wants to put out forever going forward from now on. But this is the last of their small batch releases. For those who weren't familiar with Dingle, they have been putting out small batches of single malt and single pot still whiskies up to this point while they wait for their main stock to mature so they can put out their core line. Now, from statements made by their head distiller, I don't think this is the last of those small batch releases we're going to see. They might still come out with some kind of experimentational blends that kind of differ from their core release, or they might still have a single pot still whiskey small batch release to come out. So while Dingle do have a core range, I don't think that kind of spirit of innovation and experimentation is completely gone. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more kind of new releases come out from them, but this is the last of the mainline small batch releases. So that's enough talking about this whiskey. Let's get into how it actually smells. Let's go in for the nose. Immediately that port influence is very apparent. Like I said, this whiskey spent its entire life in Tawny Port casks, so it's going to be really rich. There's kind of like a maple syrup sweetness with some kind of candied ginger running through. There's a nice kind of high pitch, that kind of bright, shiny note that kind of comes in above the sweetness. And that's balanced out by some nice kind of rich red berries. Think cranberries, think maybe some strawberries, with a bit of maybe a bit of cocoa powder touched on top of them. Like, there's a nice rich kind of depth of flavour here. There's a really rich red berry note that comes through, with as well just that really nice deep kind of maltiness that just sits underneath it all. There's no vanilla, nothing like that. It's just nice, rich, bright and vibrant. Like, it's really, I think, it's really well incorporated. You might even be forgiven for thinking that you're actually smelling a port wine when you smell this, just because of how much of an impact that Tawny Port has had on this whiskey. So I'm really excited to get into the palate of this whiskey. So sláinte. There's a nice, rich, kind of spiced fruit note that comes through here. It's really, really densely sweet. That port has had such an influence on this whiskey. I'm going to be talking about the port cask aging on this whiskey, because it's so apparent. It's so rich and vibrant. Like, there's a nice, really, really kind of bright fruitiness that comes through this whiskey. There's also that maltiness from the nose that's kind of delivered into the palate. There's almost like a cooked grain, like a cereal or like a waffle or a pancake. That kind of nice, sweet, grainy sweetness coming through. It's very nice. The malt is so well incorporated. I'm also getting nice, again, that spice, that ginger coming through. There's a little bit of that cocoa powder from the nose, but it's kind of more muted. It's behind those berries. It's behind those kind of spicy, gingery notes that come through. It's really nice. It's really dense. There's a little bit of orange, so I'm going to go back in, see if I can find that note, see if it becomes more apparent the more I get used to it. Okay, second go around. The orange note, it's not really like an orange, like a citrus peel. It goes into that kind of the marmalade note. there's a nice, really rich, approachable palate on this whiskey. I mean, it does come in at 46.5%, so it is coming in not at a really high proof, but also not at a really low proof, so you're going to get a lot of that flavour. There's virtually no alcohol burn coming through here. It's really nice, it's well incorporated, it's well balanced. I mean, it does lean heavily into that port finish, so I mean, as you'd expect it with all aged in port casks. So while I say it was balanced, like it's definitely balanced on the side of sweetness, on the side of fruitiness, on the side of that kind of nice, bright, spicy notes. So I'm going to go in again and look and see what I can find in the finish. Okay, on the finish, the spices, they do hang around. The sweetness, that kind of berry sweetness, that fades relatively quickly. The marmalade note, again, that fades. The kind of tingly ginger spice, that definitely hangs around. My tongue is still a little bit tingly. That's going away now. It's a kind of a nice medium to long evolution on this. And actually, as that spiciness fades, I'm kind of left with the feeling of just having drunk a red wine. You know, that kind of slightly tannic feeling you get at the side of your mouth. There's a really kind of nice feeling there. Like, it definitely does feel almost as if I've just drank a red wine. That note is really well incorporated, as you'd expect. I mean, it was a entirely port aged whiskey, so this is going to have a huge amount of that port influence, and I would trust Dingle to have sourced really good quality port to age their whiskey in. And I mean, that's what this whiskey comes down to. It is a port aged whiskey. It's not a port finished whiskey. I mean, I do love a port finished whiskey. I really like a port aged whiskey. So I like that sweetness. If you don't like the berry sweetness, or if you don't like the kind of berry notes that come through, those kind of rich marmalade-y cocoa notes that come through, you might not actually like this. But if you do like port finished whiskies, if you do like fortified wine finished whiskies, you're probably going to find a lot in this whiskey that you can really enjoy. And I actually do really enjoy it. Like, as I said, I will talk forever and a day about how much I really like port finished whiskies, and I take it that the guys at Dingle also like port finished whiskies because they've chosen to go out with a bang here. Like, they really lent into that port influence on this whiskey. I mean, they took a chance. They aged this whiskey entirely in port casks, and I think it really paid off. If you like port whiskey, I say definitely give it a go, if even just for the fact that this is the last of those batch releases from Dingle. This is the end of an era, for want of a better expression, of the Dingle small batch releases. I mean, they're going into those core products now, and they're probably going to continue experimenting, but this is the last of those main batches, and I think they've gone out with a bang here. This is a really good whiskey, and I think I'm going to have to pick up a second bottle of it, so I make sure I don't run out. But for now, I'm going to keep on enjoying this, and I will see you next time. Sláinte.